Hello, writers. My name is Tennyson E. Stead. I am a working screenwriter and a working script doctor, and welcome to The Right Stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about a little personal history. So, I'm going to invite you into the process here just a little bit. Ippy Looney, my wife, who is also an entertainment professional, is convinced that my lack of personal touch is keeping the channel from growing. So we're going to take a couple of videos and produce a little sort of backlog of personal content and give people an opportunity to see who I am for themselves. We're going to create some shorts to help promote the channel using that content, and we're going to see if I can open up a little bit to my internet audience. Let's give it a try. We got a couple of topics to talk about here to sort of crack the ice. The first one is just how I became a writer. So, writing for me has always been a form of play. When I was really little, I used to write and illustrate books about adventures through space and time, pretty much. It was always some kind of action hero either venturing out into the cosmos or venturing back in time to help somebody. And I wrote dozens of these books and illustrated them, and they always had quippy catchphrases like a lot of the 80s movies I was watching, and they always had ridiculous violence in them. They always had spaceships. They had to have spaceships, and a lot of the time there was a lot of fantasy elements as well. The first screenplay I ever wrote was in middle school, and my family had moved away from the Boston area, and my dad worked in the computer industry. I grew up in the computer industry, so it made a lot of sense for him to try his luck in the Bay Area. So he moved to California, and I didn't really know anybody. So I wrote a screenplay. I wanted to shoot a movie with my toys. Specifically, it was a G.I. Joe movie. I tried writing a couple of other screenplays, but I didn't have as many characters that interested me. And, I've always just been making things up and playing with words and with whatever resources were around. And then I got to high school, and I went to a boarding school. It was a place where a lot of people who didn't fit in started finding their place. And specifically it was Phillips Andover Academy. And it was not just a fantastic school, it was also a really magical time to be there, because Andover was launching this initiative to find just the brightest kids they possibly could around the world. And I wound up with kids that grew up in gangs. I wound up going to school with kids who grew up with nothing in other countries. I also, went to school with the Prince of Turkey. So there was a really eclectic bunch of people. And I don't know if it's like that there anymore, but it gave me the opportunity to kind of get to know the world around me in some really exciting and profound ways. And I started playing as much as I could there. And one of the things that I fell into was theater. And another one of the things that I fell into was tabletop role-playing. And I really liked that. So in high school, I played a lot of Vampire the Masquerade. I played a lot of Werewolf. I played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons. And I played a lot of Star Wars. And eventually the creators of Vampire and Werewolf and the World of Darkness, as it's so called, came up with a science fiction universe called Aeon Trinity, and I was really interested in that. I started creating stories and running games for that. And by the time I'd gotten to college, I knew I wanted to write some tabletop role-playing games of my own. And kind of the way theater and tabletop role-playing fit together in my head was just insofar as you're getting performances out of people. Your job as a storyteller, in either case, is to empower the performers around you to give something to one another and to give something to everybody who might be watching that they don't know that they're capable of. Spectacle is what we get when we see people do things we didn't realize people could do. Well, that can come from people we know. It can be spectacular when someone you know digs a little bit deeper than you think they can, or they think they can. That can be magical. And that really lit a fire under me, and I got to college, and I found a Star Wars gaming table to participate in, and I started pushing things in that direction. And then I started trying to put together tabletop role-playing games of my own with the people who were playing Star Wars with me. And eventually I just kind of realized that, like, creative work is work. Most people don't want to do it. It's not fun for most people. And if you want a tabletop role-playing game, you have to make a tabletop role-playing game. So I wrote Restoration, which is you can read it. It's in need of a revision. There's a lot of things in there that are outdated, and I keep it around because it's not offensive in its outdatedness. It's just a little bit naive and a little bit clunky. And the system is not my favorite anymore. But we'll get to that. So I move out to California thinking, I want to be surrounded by artists. I want to be surrounded by creators, and I want to start cultivating this world that I've built. And I moved out here and I started working in film finance and in film development, and met some really cool people. And I started running play tests for Jump Rangers with people I met online. And one of those people was a screenwriter. And he asked me, will you give me the rights? Can I turn this into a movie? And something inside me said, don't do it. Just write it yourself. And so I wrote a Restoration feature film script and got some really great feedback on it from people I trusted, actors, and also the producers I was working with. And I got really excited about empowering the people I was working with. I got excited by working with the producers that I was financing films with and the actors that I was getting to know and all this. So I started writing screenplays for those people. And as time went on, I'd written, 20, 25 screenplays. By the time I eventually stopped working in film finance, and I started trying to finance my own productions, and I did some theater around town. I've always been involved in the theater. And my degree's in theater. I studied theater in college. And I'm not a great producer. So things haven't taken off in that regard, but I am really good at film development. So I started building, a coverage sort of body of work, and I started working with one coverage company, and then I started working with a couple of other coverage companies, and now I write for Stage 32 and Scriptreader Pro. And not long after I started working with Scriptreader Pro, Alex Bloom, who owns the company, talked to me about wanting to build a script doctor sort of branch of the company, helping writers and independent producers and anybody who was a client basically work through their structural and creative issues and deliver a screenplay, basically take over the writing anonymously and get the project to where it needs to go so that everybody can move forward with the project's development. And that was during the pandemic. That was during the early stages of the pandemic. I was, at the time, living in a house owned by the family of a director that I've worked with for many years at this point. All of this has been over the span of like 30 years. This is not a short story, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm skipping, obviously. And whenever somebody comes to me with script doctor work, it's always the case that they imagine it just needs that extra little something. And as we've discussed in other videos, that something is usually a structural rewrite. It's usually a fundamental problem with the screenplay. It's almost never the writing that's the problem. it's usually the way the story's built that's the problem. So if you rebuild the story, everything starts to work and pop off the screen the way it's supposed to. Which means almost every script doctor gig I've ever had is a new rough draft. And sometimes it's something the writer writes over, and sometimes it's something they just use. It depends on whether the script has the voice that they want it to have on the page. But I have written, as a script doctor now, coming up on 40 screenplays. The cool thing about working as a script doctor is you work in just about any kind of genre you can imagine. I've literally done Bollywood films, which you wouldn't think. I've worked in the Scandinavian film industry for some really amazing people that I absolutely intend to go back to and work with on projects of my own. And I've kept the gaming side of my creative life alive. I've written 3 tabletop role-playing games at this point, the third of which is Jump Rangers, which is occupying a lot of my creative attention right now because I really think that's a project that's going to mean something to a lot of people. I think it's going to be a great game for kids and their families to play. I think it's the kind of IP that you can develop into just about anything. So I've got a fantastic prototype. If you're interested in playing my game, it's about kid space commandos fighting for humanity's place amongst the stars in the shadow of a alien dinosaur empire. It's very much a Saturday morning cartoon come to life. And I've got the prototype. I'm developing artwork with a fantastic art director down in Brazil named Federico Estevao. And in the meantime, I am writing a novel for Jump Rangers. So this is kind of my first big exploration as a writer. Almost always, whether it's tabletop role-playing or narrative design or screenwriting, my goal as a writer has always been to empower the people who are playing with me, whatever that happens to mean, in telling their story and in cultivating the performance and the things that surprise them from within themselves, And a book, a novel, is a relationship between the writer and the reader. And that's something that hasn't really been part of my writing journey up until now. So that's something we're working on. And that's where I am today. There's been a lot of hardship in my life. When I first moved to California, I was homeless for a few months. When I first started dating my now wife, we wound up living in their car for a few years, actually. We were living in the car when we got married. And it was moving into our friend's place in Phoenix that gave us the chance to sort of save up a little money and get a place in West Hollywood during the pandemic. That's how we got out of the car. So we were in Phoenix for about 6 months at the beginning of the pandemic, and then we moved back to West Hollywood. And things were going well until the writer's strike. And as you can see, I'm in Maine. I'm not going to show the house that I'm in or anything like that. It's a friend's house. And, we're respecting their privacy, and this is the internet. But you're going to get this background until we're out of Maine. So I hope you enjoy it. We'll change it up and do something a little bit more pastoral as the snow melts. But we're working our way into the Boston area. I plan on finishing the Jump Rangers novel this year. There's a lot of stuff for the Jump Rangers game I want to finish. I've already done a fantastic script doctor gig that I'm super proud of this year. There's a few others that I'm hoping are going to come to fruition. And the producer that I've been working with for many years, Lucinda Bruce, is making moves in Australia. So 2027, knock on wood, looks like it's going to be a big year. I don't want to say too much about it for right now, but there's more than one production that I think we may see going into active pre-production, at least in 2027. And then there may be other work for me there besides. I think that it's going to be a new phase. And Lucinda is a big supporter and proponent of Jump Rangers, so the hope is that we're going to be using this as an opportunity to move all of our goals forward. And in the meantime, Ippy Looney's got a fantastic role coming up. So we're in a very transitional period right now, and it's been challenging, but there's a lot to be excited by, and I'm proud of the work I'm doing on Jump Rangers. So that's kind of my journey as a writer. Look, I'm happy to answer questions. I don't particularly know if anybody's interested in this stuff. This is a little bit of a leap of faith for me. So if you have questions about me personally, please let me know, and I'm happy to answer them. The way I see it, and then the thing I told Ippy Looney is that the best thing I can do for my viewers is tell you what I know about screenwriting. But there's more to a relationship than that. I do understand that. So I'm autistic. I don't know what people want from me personally. Please feel free to tell me. It'll be helpful, and then I'll give it to you. Maybe. We'll see. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, if you'd like more videos like this, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. What else do we say? It's been a while since we've done these because we just moved to Maine, and there's been a whole lot of, rough road between where we were in California and where we are right now. So, yeah, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for showing up. And I will see you next week.